Chris. Gunzz here with Buddy McGirt, the great Buddy McGirt. Big fight tomorrow night, buddy. Manny Pacquiao looking for revenge against Tim Bradley. The first fight ended in controversy. Every time a fight happens of this magnitude, and it is a pretty big fight, everybody tries to figure out how it's going to play out. When you think about what's going to happen tomorrow night, what kind of things do you think about when you are trying to determine how it's going to play out tomorrow night?
Oh, I think that don't reach with the jab. I think personally, my personal opinion is that the fight's going to be just as boring as the first one.
Mm-hmm. That doesn't.
So they're both, what's his name? Bradley's, a very good boxer, very defensive minded. Pacquiao's Pacquiao, and coming off of the Marquez fight, and then the last Bradley fight, when he got robbed, I thought Pacquiao got robbed. Pacquiao, when he fought Rios, he was a little more cautious. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I could be wrong, but just my personal opinion. I don't think the fight is going to be as exciting as it's hyped up to be.
No.
Yeah.
And you said a lot of the same things that I think about when I think about this fight. Manny lost that fight, and he opted not to take that rematch because he felt he won the fight. Instead, he took the fourth fight with Juan Manuel Marquez, and he got brutally knocked out in that fight. But then he came back against Brandon Rios, and he won in a nice, safe, play it safe type of fight.
But he's very cautious in the fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, Rios, was the perfect opponent for him. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I just think that I think the provocative fight took a lot out of Bradley. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I just think it's like I said, I could be wrong, but I don't think it's going to be as exciting as hyped up to be.
Yeah, and then I think about Tim's career since that fight, and he had the tough win against Ruslan, another fight that a lot of people think he didn't deserve the decision to, and he admitted to even having slur in his speech for months after that fight. First of all, do you ever remember hearing any stories of any fighter talking about an injury like that in a fight? And if you did hear about that from your own fighter, would you?
No, not. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
What would you tell him if your own fighter came to you and said, "Hey, I'm slurring my speech for 3 months after this fight. After this fight's over," what would you tell him?
It's time to find another source of income.
Yeah, a lot of people say that too.
If you're slurring the speech, I tell every fighter that I ever work with, if I ever sit you down and hand you a cigar, that means it's time to quit.
Mm.
If a fighter came to me and said he had slurred another speech, I'd give him 2 cigars.
And then he had that nice win though over Juan Manuel. But then when I think about that win, it's a 39-year-old Juan Manuel, and he was coming off that high of beating his rival in Manny Pacquiao and experiencing being a humongous superstar in the sport. And he has a lot of great wins in his career, but never of that magnitude, the way he experienced after he knocked out Manny like that. So what version of Juan Manuel was that, is what I'm thinking. 39 years old and coming off that high of beating his rival. How much what do you think of that win? I mean,
I think, hey, listen, he beat a good fighter.
Mm-hmm.
No, but he beat an old fighter.
Yeah.
He beat an old fighter. There's an old saying, fighters get old walking up the stairs sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think that Marquez, been a great champion throughout the years. He's always gave it 150% when he stepped in the ring. But styles make fights. Fast guys like Bradley will give Marquez trouble all the time, especially at this stage of the game.
No.
You know what I mean? Because at this stage of the game, even when he got knocked out, even when he knocked out Pacquiao, it wasn't going in his favor at that time.
Yeah.
Pacquiao was really getting off on him. He just threw a perfectly timed punch. You know what I mean? But that's what great champions do. You know what I mean? And you can see in that fight, how he was setting Pacquiao up for that right hand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was just a matter of time before he caught him with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but do I think that Marquez, would beat Pacquiao in the rematch? No.
Mm-hmm. So you.
Like you said, he's 39. He's 39. A lot of wars.
Yeah, true. And knowing all that we talked about already, and knowing the boxing's a mental game, it's either some people say it's 50% mental, some people put it as high as 90% mental. Where do you put boxing mentally? How important?
You know what? I would say it's like 80% mental, 90% mental, but no matter how much mentally you put into it, when your body says no, it's a wrap.
Yeah. Yep. And knowing what we know, what do you think's how's it gonna play out? You said it's gonna be a boring fight, and it's a fight that. Who do you favor going in? There's reasons for Manny to feel good going in, and there's reasons for Tim to feel good.
I think Pacquiao will win a decision.
In a boring fight.
I think he'll win a decision. But would I go out of my way to see the fight? No.
Yeah, and thank you, buddy McGirt. Lots of people respect your opinion. Let the people know you're busy in the gym right now. You got someone shadow boxing.
Yeah.
What are you working on? Who are you working with?
I got a couple of guys in California. They call me. I had to work with up and coming guys. Nothing. I mean, give me about 6 months or so, then you'll be hearing about them.
Can't wait to hear.
Everything is going good there.
One of the great guys. One of the great minds.
I got a lot of heavyweight. Isaac Chilumba.
Yeah, great
win. Don't pull back like that, Joe. Don't pull back like that. Who had a great win a couple weeks ago on NBC.
Yep.
He's number 2 now. So just taking it day by day. Staying under the radar. You know what I mean?
Yep. Isaac Chilumba beat Denis Grachev. Drago's son. Just nice win. Nice win. And a great guy in his corner. I can't wait to see what's next for Isaac Chilumba, and I can't wait to see Buddy McGirt on TV and giving his opinion in the corner and telling his fighters what to do. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, babe.
Billy Briscoe, one of the great trainers in the game, and I'm calling you to get your opinion on tomorrow night's fight between Manny Pacquiao and Tim Bradley. Everybody thinks about how the fight's going to play out, what a big fight's about to happen. How do you go about picking a winner in a fight when you're trying to think about what's going to happen and how it's going to play out? Well, what things do you think about?
Well, first and foremost, style makes fights, and the first time we all know Manny should have won the fight, but he didn't get the decision this time around. Believe it or not, I think Bradley's a much better fighter because he's seasoned, he's been through adversity, you know what I mean? He knows that he belongs on that level now. The first time he was unsure of himself. He's in there with a legend, but after he beat him, they say when a fighter wins the world title, he automatically becomes a 20% better fighter. Or if you beat a legend, then that got to be at least a 25% increase, So I think he's mentally more prepared now. And he's been through adversity. I mean, before Kalashnikov, that guy's machine. He gets like he got lead bars in each hand,
Yeah.
So I just think Pacquiao probably going to win this fight, though. I think he'll win because I'm afraid he'll make adjustments and they try to box more. And I just think that, Pacquiao may be able to outbox him. But I wouldn't count Bradley out. I mean, it could be a pick-em fight, I believe it's who can make the better adjustment between rounds is going to pull off the win. Because at the end of the day, everybody plans their fight and fight their plan. But the one that can make the better adjustment 9 out of 10 times is going to be the winner of that, the fight.
Yeah. And Manny lost that first fight, and he opted not to take the rematch because he felt he won it. And instead of taking that rematch with Tim Bradley when he opted instead to fight Juan Manuel Marquez, and then he got knocked out brutally in a fight that he was doing good, and it looked like he was on the verge of winning that fight himself, but then he got caught with that right hand. But boxing is a mental game, and he did get caught with that punch, and he was put to sleep. What do you think? He did get that win over Brandon Rios, and it's a feel-good win. Brandon Rios is a tough guy, and nothing to thumb your nose at. Great fighter, good fighter, tough fighter, but Manny seemed to play it safe and box to a decision. He got the win like that. But mentally, after being put to sleep by Juan Manuel, where do you think Manny is right now?
Well, I think, he got his confidence back because, some guys, they get knocked out and they get devastated, and they can never come back. Then you got some guys that have been knocked out, and came back and had very successful careers. Like, for example, Charles Brewer got knocked out twice and, on the Blue Horizon on the way up. Well, the coach picked him up, dusted him off, got some confidence, building wins, and he became the IBF super middleweight champion in the world. You know, that's a different guy. You know, guys, all fighters deal with it differently.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that Manny put it behind him. You know, and he's looking forward to really beating Pacquiao. I mean, really beating Bradley and making an example and show the world that, you know, I won the last time and I'm going to win this time too.
Yeah, and you picked out of everybody you could pick out, you picked out Charles Brewer. So leave it to a Philadelphia guy to call on another Philadelphia guy to make a point with. I respect that.
Yeah.
And then when I look at
Philly, you know what I mean? Philly boxing headquarters. We just, you know, unfortunately, we have bad management and bad promotion, but we got some of the greatest fighters and trainers in the game.
Some of the greatest, and still do. Great, one of the great fight cities in the whole world, and maybe the greatest.
Yeah, I like to think so.
Yep. And then I look
we
at
got the living legend with us. We got Bernard Hopkins. He's the last throwback to the old school boxing.
Yep.
Forgot more about the art and science of boxing. Most people know. Now it's rock'em sock'em robots.
Yeah.
You know, it's the sweet science here. Make you miss, make you pay, tie you up. You know, some people might say it's boring, but it's not boring. It's winning. You know.
Exactly.
Don't get it. However, he's 49 years old and holding intellectual conversation with people on a daily basis.
Yeah. And he's
like two generations. He's like 2 generations past retirement. You know, most guys retire what 35. He's 49, going on 50.
Yeah.
Must be doing something right.
That's right. And I'm going to call you back because he's fighting next week. I'm going to call you back and get your opinions on that fight. Bernard always
I'm going to be there. I'm going to go down there and check him out. That's my buddy. You know what I mean? We go back a long time.
Yeah. Every time he's in the ring, it's another opportunity to set a record, break his own record. Incredible guy.
Yeah.
Incredible guy.
I mean, have you heard of a first ballot Hall of Fame? He's got to be a guaranteed ballot Hall of Fame. What he did at middleweight alone has to guarantee him a spot in Kansas, right?
Yeah. It's incredible.
And since then, I mean, how many guys moved up from middleweight, went straight to light heavyweight, and won the title?
The great Bernard. He's incredible.
And, the great Sugar Ray Robinson. You know, he tried it. He was winning, but unfortunately, he fell victim to heat exhaustion when he fought Joey Maxson.
Yeah.
And it was so hot, 2 referees. They had to replace the referee twice.
Yes.
You know, and dehydrated.
Yeah. Referee. I think who was it? Ruby Goldstein or something like that. He fell right out.
They had to bring another guy in, right?
Yep.
And he was about to pass out too.
But in all fairness, Sugar Ray started out as a welterweight. That would
all the way to light heavyweight.
He's incredible. He fought
all the way into the 60s, you know.
Yeah. But
I see when they had the fundamentals, they the major difference between a good fighter and a great fighter. The great fighters take time to master the fundamentals. These guys have mastered the fundamentals, so when their reflexes have declined, you know, in the timing, they was able to rely on a solid foundation of the fundamentals and their cumulative ring knowledge to carry them through the last 10 years or so of their career. And they were so far advanced over these guys, they could, you know, beat the hell out of them.
And that's something, too. That the great champions like Ali and Sugar Ray and Bernard, they're incredibly mentally tough guys, too. And boxing is a mental game.
Yeah, some people at least 80% mental. Bernard say 90. I go with that, but I know it's at least 80. You know.
Yeah, some people say 50%, and some people say 90%. But you put it at 80.
I'm saying guys that came to me and they were like, man, you know, I don't know if I could do these now. Man, come on, going around to the state of mind. If you could do 4, you could do 6, you could do 6, you could do 8, you could do 8, you could do 10, 12. You know. Going around to the state of mind. Then I had guys come to me. They're like, man, I could go 15, I could go 20. Like, God, he believed that he could go 15, 20 rounds. He's in great shape to do it. But at what point does conditioning cease to be a factor in the mental world of win take over? You know, like that. And you go in the history books when Joe Jeanette fought Sam McVeigh for the colored heavyweight championship of the world, I believe it was 1909 in Paris, France.
Yep.
And they fought for 49 rounds.
Incredible.
You know, I think Joe Jeanette would drop like 25 times and Sam McVeigh like 16 or 17. And Sam McVeigh couldn't get off the stool for the 50th round. So Joe Jeanette won by abandonment. You know, but at the end of the day, when the conditioning cease to be a factor and will the win take over? We're talking 49 3-minute rounds. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Back in those days, though, I think as soon as a knockdown was scored, the round came to an end. So.
No, these were 3-minute rounds. These were same protocol we fight under now. 3-minute rounds, 1-minute rest.
Okay. See, I didn't know
And
that.
it's about 3 hours and 26 minutes, I believe. It's on Box Rec. You can check it out.
Crazy. That's crazy. It's insane.
Yeah.
When I'm looking at the fight tomorrow night, though, Tim Bradley did, since that fight, he got that win over Manny, and then he took a hellacious beating with Ruslan. Provodnikov, he got the win, but it's another fight that a lot of people thought he didn't deserve to win. So that's 2 fights in a row that most people thought that deserved to go the other way, and he got the win. And then he fought and got the win over Juan Manuel Marquez. But that fight alone gives Tim a lot of confidence in coming back. But after that fight with Ruslan, Tim admitted to slurring his speech for months. First of all, did you ever hear a fighter complain about that kind of injury? And if you did, was it your fighter? And what did you say to him?
No, I never had none of my fighters slurred about. But I grew up in the gym since I'm 6 years old. So I've been training guys from 15. I've been training guys a long time. You see a guy come in like, man, you do what I do, hit me so hard. Man, I'm going to talk straight. Like, yeah. He's like, oh, you hear this one a lot, man. He went to the body so hard I was pissing blood for a week.
Yeah, I heard that before.
You know what I mean? Guys piss blood for a week, or they get hit with a good shot in the ear and they can't hear for like a month.
Mm-hmm.
They get perforated eardrums.
Yeah, I heard about that.
You see a guy walking and they're falling over because they got the equilibrium, the eardrum busted, so their balance is off.
Yeah. Those are things I did hear about. I heard fighters admit to that, but I don't think I ever heard someone say I can't even talk straight or I'm slurring my speech. I never heard of that.
Yeah, I heard a few guys. Some guys be talking to you, they slurred, but you're okay.
Oh yeah.
And then unfortunately, the guy did what they call punch drunk,
Mm-hmm.
or the old timers say they're walking on their heels.
Yep.
You try to hold a conversation with them, and you're like, dang. And unfortunately, there's quite a few of them here, Philip. I don't want to say no names, but I don't hurt nobody's feeling.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it is.
I totally get. I know what you mean, and I know some fighters I can name too. And it is sad, but I just never heard a fighter acknowledge it himself. Most guys, you're like, does he even notice? Does this guy notice that he's not talking the same as he used to? But most of them don't acknowledge it. But Tim Bradley did, and I'm glad.
Yeah, I know the guy. He keeps it real,
Yeah.
No shame in that.
Definitely. And then he had that nice win over Juan Manuel, but then I think Juan Manuel was coming off that euphoria of beating his rival, Manny Pacquiao, and experiencing that kind of adulation that he got from the fans, and he became the toast of the boxing world, basically. It was a humongous win, so I'm like
People
thinking...
seem to forget that Manny Pacquiao was putting it on him up until he got caught.
Yeah.
I mean, Marquez was getting taken a hell of a beating.
Yeah.
He was in the peripheral. He took the worst out of that fight. I mean, Manny got knocked out, and that's bad. But look at the punishment that Marquez was taking. I mean, his face, man, he was bad, man.
That's exactly what I'm thinking too. Like how much did he lose in that fight? And couple that with the fact that he is 39. He's 39 years old. So how impressive is the win that Tim Bradley took that night? I mean, he looked good.
He might have got a shot warm. He might have beat a real shot warm Marquez,
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, it's not your chronological age. It's about awards you've been in. This guy that's 39 is fresh, and this guy that's 29 is shot.
Exactly.
The amount of wars he's been in, let's be honest. Marquez is a good little boxer, decent defense, but he's been in a lot of wars. Wear and tear, like the analogy that Teddy Atlas used to get. That's fighting like a brick wall. Me and you compete with a sledgehammer and throw rocks at it and bang the car into it, and it won't do nothing. It'll chip it, a buckle, or it may even sway a little bit, but it won't fall down. That little kid leans against the tire shoe and it falls over and crumbles. Not that the little kid leans on the tire shoe, it's an accumulation of blows prior that weaken the structure to the point where you can just lean on it and fall over. Same thing with a fighter,
Yeah, and it sounds like
put on a rock. Eventually it'll wear you out.
Yep. And it sounds like you break a fight down pretty much the same way I do, and I think you came to the same conclusion. So you already said it. Tomorrow night you're expecting Manny to win, right?
Yeah, I'm expecting a unanimous decision.
Unanimous decision.
I don't think he'll stop Bradley, but I mean, this is boxing. Anything can happen.
Yeah, the great Billy Briscoe. What's going on with you right now? Who you got in the gym?
Well, I got a kid, Dennis Hatson. He's 15-0 light heavyweight. He just signed with Al Heyman. He's fighting sometime this month in California. Then I got a kid that's the welterweight champion of Canada, Dan Vargas. I'm supposed to start working with him. He just won a 10-9 unanimous decision last week.
Yeah.
And other guys here and there that I'm helping out.
Can't wait to see you on TV next. I love hearing you in the corner and love hearing your point of view. Thanks, Billy Briscoe. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Ice John Scully tomorrow night. Big fight. I want your point of view because you're one of the great minds in the game. Great fighter, great trainer, and you even did some commentating on ESPN. I remember hearing you on ESPN. How you doing, man?
I'm doing really good. Appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you being on. And Manny Pacquiao's looking for revenge tomorrow night. He lost that fight controversially a couple years ago to Tim Bradley. When you're thinking about any fight, and this is a big fight, how do you try to break the fight down when you're trying to look at who's going to win? Everyone tries to figure out who's going to win the fight. What things do you look at to pick your winner?
I mean, you're looking at the styles and the matchup, how each guy matches up with the particular style. Because, like, I'll give you an example. Some people, when Roy Jones would, like, dominate some guy for 12 rounds, the guy wouldn't even land a punch. And then for his next fight, people would pick against the guy, and they would say, oh man, well, he didn't even hit Roy Jones. It's like, relax. I mean, whoever he's fighting next is not Roy Jones. You know what I mean? So you have to take his strengths and apply them to his opponent. And in this case, it isn't Roy Jones that he's fighting. So, with these guys, I mean, Bradley, I thought that he definitely had his moments. I don't think he won the last fight. Most people don't think so. I was actually at the Hall of Fame in New York, and a whole bunch of us went to like a sports bar and watched the fight. And the general consensus was that he was losing, that Pacquiao was winning. But that's not to say that Bradley didn't have his moments. He certainly had his moments in that fight. He was very game. He wasn't afraid of Pacquiao. And he stepped up in the moment. I don't think he did enough, but I think he proved that he belonged there. And the fact is he did get the decision. So now in the meantime, Pacquiao isn't the same person that he was then. There were signs that maybe he was slipping a little bit at that time, and he obviously got knocked out brutally, one of the most brutal knockouts ever at that level since. And Bradley, I think Bradley, he's looked, amazing. He's gained a ton of experience since. And I thought in his last fight, he looked probably technically the best he's ever looked. So it would stand to reason that Pacquiao may not be quite as good as he was the first time they fought. And it would stand to reason that Bradley is much better than he was the first time they fought. So I'm kind of thinking along those lines, and it's just a natural progression. I mean, Pacquiao's gotten older, and he's had a lot of fights. This guy has a lot of miles on him, and that's kind of where I'm at with him. Kind of at this point, I'm going against many people, but and I wouldn't bet on it, but I'm leaning towards Bradley in this fight based on that.
Yeah, and you break down a fight pretty much the same way I do. I'm trying to think about the way it's going to play out, and I look at how Manny's looked since then instead of taking that rematch because he thought he beat Tim, so he's figuring, why should I take the rematch? Instead, he fought his rival for the fourth time, Juan Manuel, gets knocked out brutally, but it was a fight that looked like he was on the verge of winning. So then he gets knocked out, and then he has that comeback win over tough and really good fighter, Brandon Rios, but he played it safe and boxed. But Tim looked in his face and he said, hey, you don't look like you have the killer instinct. So it sounds to me like you agree with Tim. You think Manny lost that kind of killer instinct that he used to have.
Well, I mean, it's kind of weird. A fighter is a fighter. And I don't know if I think in the right circumstance, a fighter will go for the kill. I mean, some guys are just like that. I'll tell you, Roy Jones, I can tell you right now, I know Roy, at times, he took it easy on certain guys. I don't want to embarrass anybody, but I will say names. But I know guys that he took it easy on for different reasons. He just beat them, the best way he could to get through. But by the same token, there's other guys, obviously, that Roy brought that killer out against. Sometimes you feel like, you don't need to beat a certain guy a certain way. You don't have an animosity. People think fighters all hate each other and they all want to fight. They all want to kill each other. And a lot of these guys are so good and they're so far ahead of other people that they can beat people without having to exert themselves and show that killer instinct. But it's in every one of us. I mean, it's there. You just have to bring it out. And I would say, logically, that Pacquiao realizes that this is his career. I mean, this is a huge fight. If he's going to bring the killer out, if he has killer in him, it's going to rear its head tomorrow night. Sure.
And that's true. It is that kind of fight where it's going to tell a lot. It's going to show exactly what he's got because he knows where he's at and he knows he got to impress as much as he can. So you're totally right there. And then I look at Tim, though. Since that first fight, he had that really tough fight with Ruslan Provodnikov and another fight that people think that, he didn't deserve the win. So that made 2 fights in a row where a lot of people thought he got the win that he didn't deserve. But after that fight was over, he said that he couldn't talk straight and couldn't help but slur his speech for, I think I heard weeks, I heard 3 months at a time. Have you ever heard of any fighter that you trained or you dealt with say that I'm slurring my own speech? I mean, we all know fighters slur their speech and stuff, but I never heard a fighter who's slurring his speech admit to himself not being able to talk straight. Did you ever hear an active fighter admit to not being able to talk straight after a fight?
Never. I've never heard that. I'll tell you what, I've seen a couple guys over the years who amazingly were slurring their words, and then as time went on, after they stopped boxing, it seemed like they got better. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to embarrass anybody out here and bring up names, but some high-profile guys that one day they were slurring their words, and then as they let time go by away from boxing, their speech actually cleared up to a certain degree. And I think maybe, I don't know the technical medical terms, but maybe there's something to that. You rest up and you can regain something. I don't know, but I've seen it a couple times. But I've never heard anyone admit it. And I think, to be honest with you, I think most fighters that I've ever run across, I don't think they realize they slur their words. It's almost like a person when they're drunk and they're the only one who thinks that they're not drunk. They think they're fooling you with the way they're talking. It's like you see a guy like he'll be pulled over by a cop and he's talking to the cop trying to convince the cop he's not drunk, and it's very obvious the guy's probably 2 times over the legal limit. I think fighters, for him to realize, for Tim to realize that he was slurring is probably pretty unique. I've never actually heard that before.
Yeah. And tomorrow night I'm going with Manny. You're picking Tim, but the reason why I'm leaning towards Manny is because I'm thinking, Tim had that nice win over Juan Manuel Marquez, who beat Manny, and that's a good reason to give Tim that confidence that I beat this guy who beat the guy I'm fighting tomorrow night. So why should I not be able to win? But then I look at it, and Juan Manuel's 39 years old, and he's coming off that kind of euphoria, that excitement of beating his rival, his big nemesis in the sport. He's coming off of feeling that admiration that he's getting in Mexico and really all over the world. I mean, that was a huge fight that he won, and he became the toast of the whole sport. Everybody knew him after that sport, not just in Mexico, not in America, but all over the entire world. Everyone knew Juan Manuel Marquez. So I'm thinking, how up for Tim Bradley could Juan Manuel have gotten? So it kind of, and at 39 years old, couple that. How impressive was that win over Juan Manuel in retrospect?
Well, I mean, he was coming off the win over Pacquiao, so if you're as good as your last fight, that was a pretty impressive victory. And I just thought style-wise, I thought the way Bradley boxed, I thought he boxed very intelligently. He showed me things that I had never really seen from him before. His discipline and his ring generalship. I was really impressed. To me, it was eye-catching. I was watching and I was like, wow, this Bradley, I don't know if he's always been this good, but he's good. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to fight. And, at this level, I don't bet. I don't bet on fights because I know anything can happen, and these guys are very evenly matched. There's just different type of fighters, but they're evenly matched. I mean, either guy could win. I feel like Tim is that first fight with Pacquiao gained him a ton of experience. That crazy fight with Bradley gained him experience, and then it came to fruition against Marquez. So he's a different fighter. He's definitely a different fighter. I think he's in a better place than he was, and I'm not so sure about Manny. If he's in a better place. Like I said, I wouldn't bet on it. It's just my gut feeling, and I've been wrong before. Anything can happen. But if I had to bet $2, I'd bet on 10.
Yeah, and that means a lot to me because you're a smart guy in the game of boxing. You know your sport, and both guys have a reason going into tomorrow night. To have confidence. Manny could say, hey, I was beating Juan Manuel till I got caught, and then he has that ability to box and go 12 strong rounds against Brandon Rios and beat him. And Brandon Rios, like I said, is a good fighter. So it was an impressive win, even though it's not the same killer we came to know Manny as. He still got the nice win and dominated, won every round. And then...
and let me say one thing. A lot of people are like, oh, he should have done this and he should have done that. And I look at it like this. If you didn't know Manny Pacquiao, if Manny Pacquiao was 24 years old, he just came on the scene, you never heard of him, and you saw him fight Brandon Rios, and you saw that fight, you'd say, this guy's unbelievable. This kid is awesome. Like the way he beat Brandon Rios and the way he was, cruising the last couple of rounds. Like, just toying with him in a sense. You'd say to yourself, this guy's unbelievable. This guy is spectacular. That's how good he looked. But because it's Manny, they look at it in a different way. But I look at it that way. If I didn't know this guy, what would I think?
Yeah.
And, he looked like fresh money to me. I mean, he's one of those guys who, you're waiting to see how a knockout is going to affect someone. And some fighters in history, Simon Brown being the one that comes to mind most quickly, he never recovered from those type of knockouts. He just went downhill. Terry Norris recovered twice from it and went on to great things. Simon Brown never recovered. Manny clearly, to me, recovered. I mean, he'd be a good fighter. The style matchup favored him, but obviously Brandon Rios is a good fighter. Brandon Rios is a formidable foe. And for anyone on earth to say, they beat Brandon Rios definitively, that's impressive. No matter how you look at it, that's impressive.
Yep, and I love how you said that because I never heard anyone say that before, and you're totally right. If no one knew Manny, that would have been highly impressive. Brandon Rios, tough, great fighter, and Manny just won every single round like that. I think everyone would be impressed if that wasn't the guy we came to know as that killer that Manny Pacquiao was. But incredible fighter. Both guys have a reason to feel good going into tomorrow night, but you're just looking to Tim Bradley as being the more confident guy and coming out with the W. That right?
Yeah, I just feel, my guess is that the timing of it is favoring him. And normally you might even say Pacquiao has that Mayweather fight on his mind and as incentive, but it's been 5 years, 6 years that this has been in the mix, so I don't even consider that like an incentive. So you have to wonder what his incentive is at this point. And like I said, the timing. My gut feeling is that Bradley, the timing is going to favor him.
Yep, and that sounds good. Connecticut guy, Ice John Scully, recently made the move to Florida. What do you got going on in Florida, Ice?
I'm training some fighters down here. I've got some good guys. And there's a ton of gyms just right where I live. Like Christy Martin's gym is literally right down the street from me. And I have 2 other gyms that I go to. There's a lot of fighters down here. There's a lot of big fighters, a lot of hungry fighters. I go to this one gym on Tuesday and Thursday, and we get sparring. I did some sparring last night, and a lot of hungry guys. It's just really, really fun. And so I'm keeping busy. I'm in the game every day, and just like I always was, I haven't broken stride at all.
You working any corners anytime soon? Should we be looking for you on television?
Yeah. Actually, I have I was gonna have a guy, a journeyman fighter down here. He was gonna fight on the Mayweather show, but he hurt his rib, so he's out of action. But I'm actually going to be in Los Angeles, actually Carson, California, in a couple weeks. Golden Boy show. I have a kid by the name of Charles Whitaker, who you might know. He's a veteran. He fought on NBC Sports not too long ago, and he's fighting a kid, former Olympian, Terrell Gosha, in about 2 weeks.
Wow.
I'm going out there with him and trying to upset one of the young guys in the game.
Yeah, I remember he fought Gabe Rosado.
That's the one, right? Yeah.
So,
and Charles is a good boxer.
Yeah, he is.
Good skills. He's got a lot of experience. I actually first met him about 15 years ago in Pensacola at Roy Jones' gym. He was there sparring with Roy. So he's in the gym, he's been boxing with some good fighters, and I'm just trying to help him. One last run at doing something big in the game.
Yeah, can't wait to see you on television again, giving your advice in the corner. Always give great advice, always give great interviews. We'll see how good your pick is tomorrow night. We disagree on the outcome, but we'll see who's right. Thank you, Ice. Appreciate your time.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.